If you were to hack into my computer on August 17th, 2025 and navigate your way to my Google Docs, you would see a document titled 3D Modeling the Five Nights at Freddy's characters from memory. That does not match the title of this video. That's because when I originally wrote that title, I had not started any sort of 3D modeling. This new title and introduction have been written and recorded by a now humble, self-taught 3D modeler. With all that in mind, I've decided to model Freddy Fazbear from memory. And as of recording this, I have already finished the 3D model. And oh my gosh, that was a journey. I did record the process, but you will have to bear with me, because my process is a bit rough. See what I did there? I emphasized bear. Bear with me. So like any sane person, I start by deleting the default cube and then adding a new one. I made it round with a subdivision modifier. I cut it in half horizontally and then vertically, so I can add a mirror modifier. That way everything I do is nice and symmetrical. With all that set up, I move on to extruding and moving faces around to get the desired shape of Freddy's head. This is the part where I should clarify that I did watch a tutorial on how to model a Freddy head, only so I could have the knowledge of what techniques to use. If you consider this cheating, that's fair. But I can say confidently that I never once had a reference to look at while modeling. Everything was from my memory. So, moving right along, I do end up forming a shape that is quite similar to Freddy Fazbear's cranium. I even go as far as to add eye holes and then undo that immediately because I did not like the way they looked. Then I move the faces around a bit more until I just select the entire mesh and hit the X key on my keyboard, which makes a delete menu appear, and I click on the faces option. Then I start by adding a cube and making it round with a subdivision modifier. Then I go ahead and cut it in half vertically and then horizontally so I can add a mirror modifier. That way everything I do is nice and symmetrical. Now I could sit here and describe everything I'm doing in this footage for the duration of this video, but that sounds super boring. So I'm just gonna let it run in the background and talk for a bit. So enjoy this time lapse while I yap and cycle through PNGs of myself. So the reason I made this video is because I've been itching to make more content and to improve my 3D modeling skills. I've also been a little obsessed with Five Nights at Freddy's and the character designs as of late. And I've really been wanting to model the characters, so I decided to bring multiple birds to one stone and make this video that lets me tackle all of the things I wanted to do. And you know, since this is a FNAF related video, I gotta ask, when did y'all get into Five Nights at Freddy's? I myself was just entering middle school when the first game came out, but I didn't get introduced to it until the next summer, and at that time, 2 and 3 had already come out, and 4 was getting ready to rear its nightmarish little head around the corner. My friend, who's still one of my best friends today, introduced me to the series, and I remember just pulling all-nighters with him while we watched Markiplier play through all 3 games. Man, those were the days. Now I'm a 22-year-old man recording a script about... Wait, that's not the correct line. Now I'm a 22-year-old man and I'm still obsessed with these games, specifically the lore hidden within. I can sit for hours and hear everyone's take on the timeline without getting bored. So anyway, back to the project at hand. I got a shape that I was relatively pleased with, and then I go ahead and model the nose, which wasn't hard whatsoever. But then I move on to modeling the jaw, and I'll tell you right now, this was probably the most annoying part of Freddy's head. Especially doing this from memory. It took me like 3 attempts to get a product I was happy with. The first attempt made him look like a dog. I don't even know what I was trying to do with the second attempt. It just looks bad. And the third attempt was the best I was gonna get. It looks like a Freddy jaw enough. Skipping ahead, I added teeth, eyes, eyelids, a hat, some eyebrows, and finally the ears. And with all of these elements put together, we got a Freddy head. And I'm honestly pleased with how this turned out. Then I added some color to it. I'm going with flat colors because they match my style a bit, and I said I wanted to improve at modeling, not texturing. Anyway, it was time to work on the body, which was much easier than modeling the head. Same workflow though, round cube, move faces around, poke holes where holes need to be poked. Arms were super easy. I made those out of a slightly less rounded cube. Oop, did you see that cut? You'll now see that Freddy looks mostly complete at this point. I essentially did the Blender equivalent of doing some mining off screen. But rest assured, I did not do this because I was off looking at reference. I simply forgot to record some of the most important sections of this model: the hands and feet. But don't worry, just like regular hands and feet, they were a pain to model as well. But I am very happy with how they turned out. One thing you guys can clearly see me struggle with is the pelvis. But I think I was just overcomplicating the process. I did end up getting a result that I was happy with. And then I got to move on to something a bit easier, the endoskeleton. And because most of it is hidden within Freddy, I didn't have to focus on every little detail. So what I did was make these ribbed cylinders for the arms, and for the joints I used spheres because it looks right. Then, in preparation for adding the neck of the skeleton, I cut this hole in the back of Freddy's jaw, just so that the neck can fit in properly and it can look somewhat realistic. And for the neck, I used the same ribbed cylinder. Then I get to work on the head of the endoskeleton. I won't lie, I kinda went overboard on this thing that isn't gonna be fully visible, but I had fun. Also guys, let me know if you want me to post the full time-lapse of this footage. Like I said before, the part where I model the hands and legs are missing, but I still have hours of footage I can compress down into a 30-minute to 1-hour time-lapse. I won't do it though if no one wants it, but even if one person requests it in the comments, I'll post it. Alright, anyway, where were we? Ah, yes, the endoskeleton. Well, I'm kind of bored with talking about this process. As you can see, it's a lot of the same elements, and this model is basically done at this point anyway. So, that's it. Time for the reveal. Well guys, here it is, the finished model. Essentially, my own version of Freddy Fazbear, completely modeled from my own memory. Now rotating 360 degrees, so you can soak in the entirety of this 3D model. Don't worry, we'll get into the comparison soon, just one more rotation. Alright, so I went ahead and roughly posed my Freddy up to the official FNAF 1 Freddy, and honestly, I think I did a fairly decent job. I feel like I caught the likeness of Freddy fairly well. The proportions are off in a couple places. It also manages to look bland and cartoony at the same time. Going with flat textures doesn't really help that, but I think it has its own charm. Overall, I think this model turned out good for having zero reference. Now I have my very own Freddy Fazbear. And since I have him, I think it would only be fitting to model the rest of the band as well. So if you would like to see that, let me know who you want me to model next. Bonnie, Chica, or Foxy. Drop a comment down below and I'll get to work on it. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I certainly had a good time making it. I'm also sorry about the jump scare. But I did have fun making that as well. This has just been a fun experience. Well, I'll see y'all in the next one.